This is our first podcast of many to come. And today I'm very, very excited to introduce someone that I know intimately over many, many years, Ross Dickmann, to be our first participant in the Founders Mindset podcast. I'd like you to tell us a little bit about your career and personal background.
Well, first of all, hello, Richard, and thanks for letting me participate in this podcast. You said it's the first, and I don't recall being the first at almost anything in life, so this is a real delight here. I am pleased and proud to be part of the Restora team. I think it's just an amazing company, and I'm also eager to be part of the beginning of this great organization. So thank you for letting me be part of that. I actually have been in senior living now just over 30 years, but I also spent 21 years in a prior career that I retired from, and that was from the United States Coast Guard. I started back in the mid 70s, and I devoted most of my time to law enforcement. That took me everywhere from counter narcotics interdiction with patrol boats down in South America, all the way up to and including at the end of my career working with Secret Service protecting President Bush 41 up in Kennebunkport, Maine. So it's a very diverse career. It offered a lot of opportunity. It was exciting. And so when I tell people about this, they often ask me, well, I'm trying to seek the connection between your first career and the hospitality business with a special focus in dining operations. And I would remind them that the armed services is really no different than any other culture in that, there are a myriad of different jobs and areas of expertise. But for me, what was a good fit getting into this world was from a leadership management standpoint, it involves trust, adaptability. I think performance is really important, and also extreme dedication. And those four cornerstones for me were a perfect fit coming into the private sector and working in the hospitality business, because each of those is inordinately important.
And Ross, and could you give us a little more background? I know the military was one part of your beginning part of your career, but maybe more about your career and professional background after that.
Yeah. So when I retired from the military, I was really looking at an opportunity to get into hospitality. And my older brother actually was the catalyst for that. He had worked with Marriott for an entire career. I started doing volunteer work in Washington, D.C. at a retirement community that was dedicated to retired military officers. I worked there on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. And I got bit by the bug. I fell in love with it. I really loved the hospitality, people-pleasing aspect. I like the business acumen. I love the people interaction and the relationship building. So that was the beginning of it all for me. And then there was a young couple that was just getting started back in those days called Paul and Terry Clausen. They created a company called Sunrise Assisted Living. I was a person that went and knocked on their door and said, I would like to be part of this. They gave me a chance, and I actually got my first opportunity as an executive director back then, running a relatively small 120-bed operation in Columbia, Maryland. And then it took off, Richard. I really jumped right into the old CCRC, now Life Plan Communities, the Jefferson down in Arlington, Virginia, just outside of the district. And that was a Marriott property, of course. And then I moved on to Hyatt. Hyatt was involved in senior living and still is. Their brand back then was called Classic Residence by Hyatt. They had a very close relationship with their hotel brand. And I did that for about 3 or 4 years, opened up a brand new place in Aventura, Florida. And then I got a ring from the first nonprofit company associated with Greystone out in Texas. And I had the pleasure to open up a brand new CCRC in Austin called Carencia at Barton Creek. Spent 7 years there and moved on to Bonita Springs, Florida. Opened up another brand new place, the Terraces, and was there for about 5 years. And then I got a ring from Moorings Park, and they said they were looking for a chief operating officer. And that's ultimately where things all came together for me. That rounded out 30 years in this business and 30 really good years.
I'm a big fan, Ross, of the founder's mentality. It was put out by Bain and Company to really isolate out what does a founder's mentality mean. I know you've read it, our whole organizations throughout the Phoenix3 cultures. It's kind of our guiding principles and force. You've read it. We've spoken about it. What does it mean to you?
Nobody knows this better than you, Richard, with your background and the companies that you have started. But you have to be willing to roll up your sleeves, and you have to be driven by your obsession. And I believe that's the operative word here. And that's really the founder's mentality. And that's what I pull out of that. That obsession links beautifully with ownership. So when a person wants to and desires to be an owner, they need to have that powerful ingredient inside of them. And that is something that I think I have witnessed already in my short tenure at Restora. I think under these circumstances, people are motivated to drive the company as if they're at the top of the company. They are the ones that are responsible for its success. They're also the ones responsible for making course changes when things aren't just right. They have to be 2 steps ahead of the industry. They've got to be thinking out of the box. They have to be risk takers to a certain extent. And we recognize that in a founder's mentality, mistakes are going to be made. But, from those mistakes, we learn from that and we can continuously do better. But that's what I take out of that particular read. It creates a certain magic. There's a magic that occurs. It happens when you have those people surrounding the core business. And, I think that they don't make apologies for having a love affair with their business. There's no question about it. Highly protective, highly driven, highly motivated.
So let's move on. You've got so much expertise, Ross, so much more than I will ever have about, what I'll call the active adult lifestyle communities and what we'll call life plan, continuing care, retirement communities. When we look at that industry today, what have residents' expectations changed at those facilities, in your opinion? And really, when you look at the role of technology, personalization, amenities, help us out a little, because I think a lot of our listeners, even have family members. I think people go through this as they age, they become the caretaker or responsible for their parents. And a lot of them, as well as me, until you're in the industry, you don't know what to look for. So maybe you could give us your wisdom of all these years of what it's like.
Well, here's what I'll share with you and the audience. As we started this conversation, my experience goes back about 30 years. And I've always felt very fortunate to receive mentorship from what I consider to be some of the best in the hospitality business 30 years ago. But there's been multiple paradigm shifts that have occurred over those 3 decades. And the key to being highly successful, I think, in the hospitality business is not become so rigid you're unable to change. You have to be able to be flexible enough to recognize that the world changes, people change, and we have to keep in the forefront of our minds that those people are our customers. So when I go back to the beginning, for me anyways, when I started serving seniors in the retirement business, that was predominantly the greatest generation. These were World War II era people, men and women, uh, classy men and women, no question about it, who really had a vision of what retirement looked like. And that was, either I live at home or I go to a retirement operation, and I'm going to be served, and I'm going to let them do all the work, and I don't have to worry about a thing. And that was the culture, that was the environment, and that was the society that they grew up under. Um, so there was a set of rules almost in what I would call rules, policies, or protocols that we lived by back in those days. And then we started to shift into what everybody knows is the silent generation, which was during the Korean War era. And now we started to see a group of seniors who adopted many of the same traits as the greatest generation, but they started to also voice their opinion a little bit stronger, their involvement, their interest. And I think the industry did a pretty good job of adjusting to that. And when I talk about adjusting, I mean listening, becoming an excellent listener, and then modifying programming, whatever those programs were. Certainly, dining is a great example. Modifying that to meet or exceed their expectations. Now, keep in mind, their habits change too. How often they eat, those things changed over a period of time. And then we enter the baby boom generation, the earliest of 1946 all the way up to about 1960. My generation, your generation. And this has become really a topic one could write a doctoral thesis on, because their needs, wants, and expectations are distinctly different. Not better, not worse, just distinctly different. And what I mean by that is those older adults that are coming up now into retirement living, they want to be involved, they want to be empowered, and they ultimately want engagement in their decisions.
You've obviously experienced a lot of this from the residents' perspective as to what they really want from a residential perspective. Uh, what are your thoughts as the residents change in the industry? From the buzzword I say there isn't a company that doesn't talk AI, and hospitality has some components of it. My opinion, it still comes down to the time that uh, service attendant delivers that great meal with great service and a smile and has great culinary. AI isn't going to take the place of what goes in our bellies, I always say. But AI and technology, about how quickly or slowly the senior living industry, not the resident, has adopted innovation. What's your take on it?
Well, at least in my most recent experience in Naples, Florida, with moorings, AI has really been a blur. It's occurring so quickly. And I have found I was a little apprehensive when the terminology of artificial intelligence first came out. First of all, I wasn't sure what it truly meant. Finally, I became schooled in it, and I understand it now. And and I recognize that to be a highly effective business model, driving efficiencies, you're going to have to get on board. I really believe that passionately. Companies who are going to be highly successful are going to have to use AI to reach the really best capability of their business. Now, I'm with you. I'm in the school also that the best services in the hospitality business are really going to be a marriage between artificial intelligence, uh, regular technology, if there is such a thing, and what I call touch points. There has to be a human intervention, and our customer wants that. Let me give you a short example here. We tried the robots in the dining operation, and generally speaking, they were quite effective for a casual dining venue, but it was completely rejected when it came to a formal, what I call finer dining. And it wasn't because the technology wasn't effective, but it is because the customer wanted that relationship with the server. They wanted that connection. They wanted to have interaction. It was part of the, as I mentioned earlier, it was part of their experience. And as much as technology has made bold leaps forward, a robot cannot give that same experience as a human being. Nonetheless, there are just countless examples of how artificial intelligence has benefited our business in hospitality, in particular senior living. Um, here's a couple of examples. One is in the dietary field for those who have to be much more disciplined to their food intake, their caloric measurements, nutritious value, people who might be more frail, Richard. AI has the capacity and has already demonstrated that it can put together meal programs, menu varieties that are very vast, that provide the necessary nutrients for a resident. Also, it doesn't have to be somebody who is frail. It can be somebody who is as independent as you and I. And under those circumstances, AI can provide wonderful variety of meals and options. And it also ties directly into a point of sale system, which ties directly into procurement. And therefore, it can conduct automatic ordering. There's just so many examples of how artificial intelligence has been able to move the needle in a favorable direction. I think today, in the back of the house, we have less wastage. I think we have improved efficiencies all the way around, which benefits our client, by the way. And then one other thing that comes to mind automatically is AI has given us measurement tools to be able to effectively measure the success of how well we're doing and identify the areas that need some special attention. We could not get that same feedback, that same level of accuracy through traditional surveys in the past. But artificial intelligence today can give us trending data that we've never been able to have access in the past. That is not going to change. It's only going to get stronger, and it's going to be necessary.
As you probably know, when I did start Phoenix3, it's pivoted somewhat as to what it will be focused on. But more importantly, there were really like cores of what we wanted out of Phoenix3 and its collection of boutique companies. That's what we're looking at. We have in the portfolio Restora, focused on active adult lifestyle senior living. We have Infuse Hospitality, focused on the corporate commercial workplace amenities and specialty markets throughout the U.S. And all these are national providers of food, dining, and amenities. And then we have CenterCore, which is our procurement services, both internally and externally, CenterCore Procurement Services. And then we have Innovative Hospitality Group and CrossCheck Quality Assurance. When we look at all these organizations, we have adopted philosophically that all of them will be employee-owned organizations. In other words, they'll have a percent of the company provided to both hourly and exempt associates/owners, which has never been done in the industry. So that's not a pivot. That's philosophically where we're going, tied to culture. We've set aside in particular, the organization you joined, Restora, over 35, well, I shouldn't say over, 35% of the organization at no cost to those leaders, and most importantly, our hourly workforce. Take a bit of reflection on this. Does it matter? Have I lost my mind? Have we all lost our mind that thinking this will change people's how they come to work, why they come to work, and all? Love your thoughts on this model.
Richard, I'm here today because of that visionary thought process. I think this is quintessential Richard Schenkel right here. I believe passionately that this is groundbreaking. And let me cite to you why, on the deliverable level, why this is so unique and important. Um, you know, we talk about ownership, we talk about obsession, we talk about commitment and loyalty and dedication. When people have a piece of the ownership of the company, they think differently. This has been studied over and over and over again. They perform differently. They're committed differently. And so I think that, this is something that is going to be absolutely magnetic for our company and also the people who have a vested interest in it now and in the future. You know, if you look at the hospitality business today, there is a common denominator that has existed over the last few years, and that is we've lost some of the interest in young men and women to get into our field. I suspect that the pandemic had a lot to do with that, but I also believe that they meaning these young men and women first now deciding to break into some career, they didn't see the strong connection of ownership. And I think that this right here will make a huge difference. They will see this as an opportunity for themselves to grow with an organization. This will help retention. This will help recruitment. I think this will also help the culture at communities that we serve. It will help people feel stronger about who they are and the services they're delivering to our clients, to our customer at the community level. There's a lot, there's a lot of good here. And I think it's just a matter of time before this takes off. But this is not unusual for you. You have stepped out there boldly and you've done something different that no one else has. So, that's what I have to say about the ownership component.
Wow. And I'll chime in because, frankly, conceptually, we were looked at and we had attorneys and other people saying, why would you even do this? And my answer back, why wouldn't we do it? The world has changed. And, we did this without any expectations other than people would be owners of our organizations at no cost to them. And we just had a very successful opening of a new facility on the Restore side. And let me just, and I'm going to quote, might not be 100% accurate, but as we've started onboarding some of the hourly associates at this facility, and it doesn't matter the name, I'll give you an example that came back to me, which honestly brought a smile on my face. And one associate there, doesn't matter what his role was, came back the next day and said, do you know, I told my family I'm now an owner. And as an owner, I need to keep my eyes on everything. Nothing that we asked him to say, it came right back. And that kind of is what it's about. If those folks really are owners, can you imagine the kind of motivation that they are going to have to do the right thing? And one of my last questions to you, and I appreciate you spending this kind of time. I always like to say either looking to a crystal ball or a picture on your wall. And tell me what you think senior living communities, active adult lifestyle communities will look like in the next 10 to 20 years. Because I will tell you, I have watched this industry go through, I remember in IL, independent living, then AL, then SNF. And, AL was sometimes what real IL is today. IL never would even have a walker in the dining room, things like that. And the world has changed. I'd love from your perspective, as most recently, you were very involved in, I believe it's 3 major facilities as the COO. You've seen so many more throughout this country and the world. What's your take, Ross?
Yeah, of course, no one has a true crystal ball of what the future will hold, but here's what I foresee, and this is just based on observations and trending data. As adults grow older in America, it's my belief, my very strong belief, that they're going to be looking for uh, entering into retired communities that don't ask them to make a huge transition from their previous lifestyle. So we've done that in the past. We've asked them to really take their previous independent living life in a single family home and or apartment and modify your behaviors to live in congregate living. I think that's going to change somewhat, and it already is in front of our very eyes. To be a little bit more specific, if somebody is heavily involved in fitness, they're going to be looking for a fitness environment that mirrors what they had in their own private lives or better. They're not looking to regress and step back. Dining is another great example. If they have a certain lifestyle that involves going out to restaurants so many times per week and then dining in the dining room, they're looking for great meals, and that is going to be something that I believe that we're going to have to adhere to and be very flexible. Again, another operative word, very flexible and modify to those. Richard, I see intergenerational living continuing to penetrate senior living, no matter how beautiful buildings can be built, architecturally speaking, no matter how beautiful they can be designed inside. I believe an influence of intergenerational living helps people live longer. We talk about successful aging. Medically speaking, we can promote successful aging. We can eat better. We can exercise. We can listen to our physicians. But there is a morale component in our lives that I think is going to be equally important, and that is to not segregate yourself from younger generations. How is that done? There's a number of countries that have been successful with this. We're starting to see a little bit of this penetrate into the United States, but I believe that that's what we're going to be looking at to the future of senior living. Those who can adapt to that, those who can kind of build around that concept of really transitioning seniors into a senior living environment like a CCRC or life plan community with the least amount of disruption. They want to continue to grow and flourish. They don't want to regress. People are living a lot longer.
I'd want to personally thank you. I know I get to work with you every day, but this is kind of a little out of the box for both of us. And thank you for your thoughts. Ross is a leader. Ross is an innovator. Ross Dickmann is the best person I could have ever had created. This role for him at Restora is game changing for everyone. We brought in a talent that I've never seen before, and I've seen lots of great people. Just a little bit more. Firstly, thank you to all my listeners and subscribers. I hope this was well done for you to take out of this. I would welcome any feedback on it. The only way we get better is to get feedback, good, bad, or indifferent. In addition, if there's any things you'd like to see on this from our podcast of people you might suggest, could be yourself as well, please email us at richard@richardshankel.com or rshankel@phx3.com.